WNOV and W293CX 106.5 FM, Courier Communications, Milwaukee, but are the sole comments of the host and guest of this particular show.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I am Attorney Coral Plus, the host of the show, but I am delighted today to have with me in the studio again, Dr. MOSE Fuller. Welcome, Dr. Fuller.
Morning. How you doing now, Attorney Pleas?
I'm doing very well. The audience probably recalls because you've been a distinguished guest on the show many times now, but I always want to make sure I remind everyone that you're the heavy here because you are a director for Columbia Savings and Loan Association. Am I right about that?
Yes, since 2019.
Yeah, so 6 years here.
6 years already. Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's a long time ago. You think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time flies though, and so you came in right before the pandemic, and so under your stewardship, as well as the other directors and our distinguished president, Mr. Ernest Jones, you guys have really navigated this bank and brought it through some interesting times. I think about that with the pandemic and all. That's when you guys really came on board.
Yeah. You know, those were different times and difficult times, and really times of reflection. Attorney Jones and I, President Jones and I of the bank, he and I walked in and actually met on the parking lot. I always tell him this. And we actually walked in the bank together. You know, we were basically there at the same day, the same time.
Right, to join the board at the same time.
Join the board, same time. And, but like I said, he have a lot of experience with banking and things like that. So, and I always remind him of that, is that's an advantage in terms of any banking function or any banking operation.
Right.
So, and I always tell him too, I said, you know, Mr. President, I said, you know, you might not understand it. No, I'm a pastor. I've been pastoring this community for a long time. I said, God really had his hands on you when he sent you to this bank. He kind of like laughed, you know, I'm not quite sure. But, you know, I know that, you know, in terms of really, you know, his input into the bank in that short amount of time, and where God has placed him in the bank in that short amount of time is just simply, it couldn't have happened any other way.
Well, it never hit me until now, but you know, you guys met in the parking lot, so God brought him to this bank with a pastor by his side.
I told him that.
And now the two of you are still, you know, the two that are still directors, and Ernie, of course, is the chair of the board, and the president and CEO of the bank. But the two of you are still in leadership roles here with the organization.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a blessing for Columbia. So last week we were talking about the importance of a Black bank.
Wow.
And having a Black bank in the community and community banking in general. You know, we talked about quite a bit. So one of the things that I wanted to do just to kick off the show today is to talk a little bit, just put some historical data out there for the people to kind of chew on a little bit and just have an understanding. So one of the things that I wanted to say, and then just get your comment or reaction to it as I go through, Dr. Fuller, but in the United States, according to the most recent research that I've done, I know this number fluctuates a little bit, but there are currently 22 Black-owned banks that are operating in the United States right now. And again, that number fluctuates. I believe it has been as low as 17 banks that I'm aware, down from however many it's ever been at the peak. But it's fluctuated throughout history. And so based on the research that I've done, the notion of Black banks in the United States experienced growth back in the 1970s, and then has faced declines during crises like the Great Depression and the 2008 financial crisis. So I think that eliminated some banks that might have been right on the line and, struggling and so forth. So, so I just wanted you, if you had any comments about that, the very few numbers of Black operating banks in the United States, if there's anything you wanted to say about that.
I think as a pastor and leader in this community, and really kind of like coming into banking operation and banking functions, banking, and as a pastor, knowing that people in the churches, all churches, have to place their money somewhere, and they really need to know that they have access to capital and money on an equitable basis. And a lot of times, mainstream banks are not going to do that. That's just a fact. That's a historical fact. And when you look at the Black bank concept, I think you really have to look at Attorney Pleas. You really have to look at the concept from why would a Black bank be started in the first place?
Right.
Why is the need for there to be a Black bank concept? If you're going to be a bank, you want to have access to everybody's money, whether it's black, white, brown, whatever money, right? I mean, that's the concept, right? And so then now you have a Black bank, and so it's a reason for that. And one of the clearest reasons to have a Black bank, when you look at how Columbia Savings and Loan was started, and the simple fact is that when Black people were coming to the city of Milwaukee, they could not access capital.
Right.
And that's the genesis of Black banks. And so we need Black banks for people that might be marginalized, culturally unacceptable, or marginalized to other banking institutions to have access to capital. Right. So I think that, and I think one of the drawbacks when you had more Black banks, they had more access to capital. Now the number of Black banks is decreasing. In a sense, that's kind of like a dysfunction to Black people's access to capital in certain communities, which can be a problem, and it breeds poverty and underdevelopment in certain communities. And one of the things that we have in our community, you have food deserts. Right. And then you have banking deserts. Now, if Columbia Savings and Loan wasn't at 20th and Fond du Lac over there, 20th and Fond du Lac right now, if that bank wasn't there, I mean, that would really be a hole in the community as it relates to banking. We need more of them. We need Columbia Savings and Loan to grow. And the people that can make that bank grow are basically Black people. And that bank was started because Black people in this city did not have access to capital. And so we, as a people, with all of the spending power that we have, and we're consumers, we spend money. And we have money. I don't care what folks say. Folks talking about Black folk there. That's the biggest lie I've ever been told.
Right.
We have access to capital. We have money. It's just the way that we spend our money. So we need to start really, if we really get serious about changing Milwaukee and changing inner city and really changing our money situation and operation, we really have to start spending money Black and banking Black.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Doc Fuller, and I agree. I want to add to that, and I know we say this over and over, but we never know who's listening that maybe isn't aware of this, but Columbia started back in 1924. Yeah. So last year was the centennial anniversary, and people think of 100 years as being a long time ago, and no, it's not.
Yeah.
That's not a long time ago in history, but understand the mentality that it took to start this bank at that time. And you mentioned that Black people coming to Milwaukee or living here in Milwaukee, establishing businesses or jobs or whatever the case, however they earn their living, but were not allowed access to the capital for purchasing of homes. And that's huge. And I hit that point all the time on the show, but I also want to acknowledge, because you touched on this a little bit too, and this is important. So the flip side of that as well is what the bank granting mortgages to people, particularly in the community, it builds the community. So it's not even just about the individuals. It's about anchoring and building the community and providing capital for businesses in the community or people to live in the community. As to why that is so important, because I think people think now, well, okay, it was rough 100 years ago. Black people couldn't go to, the larger banks and get a home loan. We can do that now. So what's the point of Columbia? Those larger banks aren't necessarily investing in the community. And you're talking about a food desert. We touched on that a little bit last week with that major grocery store that closed right at 35th and North Avenue. And what does something like that do to the community? That's a huge loss.
Really is. It's devastating. See, that's the whole concept. That's the broad perspective of banking. When you have banks in any community, those communities are going to thrive.
Right.
They really are. That's just a fact.
Right.
And for us to not have the same ideals about banking and the same quantity of banks in our community, is really a problem. And that's why they say certain communities are poverty stricken. Banks are not there. People have money, but once again, educating the community about banking. And that's one of the things that banks do, financial education.
Right.
Right. And if you have banks in the community,
that's what this show is. And that is why Columbia sponsors this show every week. Right. Because I'm not here to give legal advice. I tell people time and again, because sometimes people will call with legal questions and I say, nope, that's not why we are here. And in fact, I do not give legal advice over the air. But what we are doing is we are providing information. That is what we're doing. And hopefully it is educational. And people will call in. And sometimes the people that call in are providing the education as well. It's a two-way street in the communication on this show, which is one of the things that makes it so great.
So I think that when you provide the financial education to the community, teach communities, the significance of having a good credit score, paying your bills on time, saving part of your money. I don't care what kind of money you receive every month, retirement check, disability check, $600,000 a month, $2,000 a month, or whatever it is. Talk to people about, always try to save some of that money, try to put some of it away, try to have a banking institution that you can go to and put some of the money away, 5 or 10% of it away. Don't spend all your money.
Right.
And so basically that's financial education and understanding that and understanding just basic elementary things about money. And I think when you have a bank in the community that can identify with that community, those are the concepts that bank teach the community.
Right.
And I think that having, just think about the time in the city of Milwaukee, we had more than one black bank. You used to have 2 or 3 of them.
We had 3.
Yeah. I mean, that's a sad commentary. I've been in Milwaukee since 1969. And I've been around when they had those banks.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't know that Columbia was out there, but the other one was out there.
Right.
And so now Columbia is the only one that's left.
Right.
And then we have more black people in this community, more educated black people in this community, more financially sound black folks in this community, but we're not thinking in terms of really uplifting our community. How can we come into the community with the resources that we have and make our community better and help educate and make the ones in the community that might not be financially aware, more financially aware of how to handle their financial resources.
Right.
I think that's one of the jobs of the whole community. The people that know to help the ones that don't know.
Very true.
I mean, that's what the Halyards did. They knew. They had a concept. They had a mindset. Look, they looked at the situation. They pervaded the situation, looked at it, and said, look, we want to do something about this, about the situation in our community, the black community. They saw a need. Well, the community is growing. Black folks are coming to relocating to Milwaukee. And one of the things they don't have is access to capital. So how can we fix it?
Right. And they were really blazing a trail with their thought
Sure they
process
were.
100 years ago with this. So I was looking into it, and I wanted to see what is the oldest Black-owned bank in the country. And apparently it was a bank that was started in Washington, D.C. back in 1888, that is known as Capital Savings Bank. So I thought that was interesting. History,
that one's still around.
Is always, yep.
That's amazing.
And Columbia is now the 6th oldest Black-owned bank in the United States.
Right here.
That's something to be proud of.
I'm sure it is.
And I'll confess to you that, Columbia was around, my whole life, and North Milwaukee was around my whole life. And I really just kind of took for granted that we had Black banks right here in the city of Milwaukee. And then Legacy Bank came, along, and all right, it's like, okay, the 3 Black women that are, trailblazers doing this. And I just kind of took for granted, I'll admit, I took for granted that the banks would just always be here, and just thought nothing of it. But unfortunately, tough times came, and we lost 2 of the 3.
Yeah. And, like I said, I came to the city in 1969. I was 17 when I came. And, and I kind of grew up and got to know Milwaukee. See, one of the things about Milwaukee is really not a great place politically for Black folks. But that doesn't negate the fact that we still have money. And so I think the way we spend our money is very important. Where we put our money is very important. See, the fact of the matter is, we need not only Columbia Savings and Loan to grow and maybe have another branch or whatever. I mean, that can happen.
Right.
Because one of the things that we're not starved for in Milwaukee is we have a large Black population now. When the Hellier started, the bank, they didn't. Very few Black folks there. You could count them there, and they had them strategically located in a certain area. It's a historical fact. It was down in the valley down by Juneau. And if they came to Walnut Street, that was it. And if they went beyond Walnut Street, really, they just really wasn't allowed.
Right.
And so that's a fact. And so now all of that demographic, all that stuff is gone. So the only thing, what we have now, we have a lot of Black folks here that have money, but they don't want to invest with the Black bank.
Right.
That's a fact, man. They don't want to do it. Yeah. Sometimes, you got to, one thing you can't do is ever forget where you came from. That's just a historical truism that can be detrimental to any folk that ever struggle to achieve anything.
Right.
Forget where they came from. And I think a lot of time Black folks do that, man. We forget where we came from and think we done made it. Now we need to always think of other nationalities do that. That's just a fact, and I think that's one of the things that we've done. We've done that in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And the psychology of Milwaukee is huge. If you're a Black person and you really want to, you want to go to the next level, it's a city that really hadn't been that congenial towards Black people.
That's a nice word to use.
That's
one way to put it.
And so I think that we got to remember that,
Sure.
and I think that, but simply, what I'm really saying in all of that is break time.
Yep, just about. But
finish your thought. What I'm trying to say in all of that is that Milwaukee is a great place. It's a great city, and I think it's a city where Black people in this community can really thrive. And Columbia Savings and Loan is at its best point to be that transformational institution in the community that can really make a difference in the city of Milwaukee and in the inner city of Milwaukee, particularly where it's located, can really make a difference in the community.
Well, I couldn't have said it any better than that. So we're going to be going for a break now. But when we come back, feel free to join the conversation The number here is 414-444-5250. That's 414-444-5250. We are talking about the importance of having a black bank in the state of Wisconsin. We'll be right back after the break. We're back with more Money Talks with Attorney Coral, and I have Dr. MOSE Fuller in the studio with me this morning. He's on the board of directors for Columbia Savings and Loan Association and has been for the last 6 years. So I'm grateful to Dr. Fuller and the board of Columbia for supporting this show and sponsoring this show each and every week. I always love to mention that because I'm very, very grateful for the support. So even before we get started, it looks like there may be a caller that's calling in here. So we'll go ahead and caller, please go ahead with your question or comment. Thank you for calling.
Question.
Please go
Hello?
ahead. Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay. My name is Ernest McLaughlin. I'm a veteran, and I got a account with Summit Credit Union on the south side.
Okay.
What can you do for black veterans if I decide to deposit my money in your bank?
Sure. So it's really a personal question that what I would encourage you to do is to contact the bank directly and have that conversation off the air. And the reason being is that different people with different circumstances, different options, different recommendations for what we might be able to do for you in your personal situation. So what I would recommend is that you give a call to Columbia and ask to speak to our executive director of lending and finance. That is Mr. Gill, Gill, and he'd be able to talk to you about that. So the number for Columbia is 414-374-0486. That is 414-374-0486. And I do thank you for your call.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good day.
All right. You too. Thanks.
Okay. And there is another caller. Caller, good morning. Thank you for holding. Please go ahead.
Hey, good morning. I'm just tuning in. I understand that I'm listening to some people that are affiliated with the bank in the black community. My question is what outstanding benefits do you offer for people banking with the bank?
It's funny. It's a wonderful question because it's the same question that the last caller just had. And so what I suggested to him and that I need to also offer you is everyone has unique circumstances. The gentleman that just called was a veteran and he was specifically asking questions about that. Then there's other people. Sometimes it's an individual that's coming to put a deposit. Sometimes it's someone on behalf of an organization. So it's a case by case basis with the recommendations that we're able to make. So what I asked the earlier gentleman to do was to have that conversation directly and privately with our executive director of lending and finance with Columbia, which is a gentleman by the name of Gill, Mr. Gill, Gill. And I did offer the number for Columbia Savings and Loan Association to have that as a private discussion. So the number for Columbia is 414-374-0486. That is 414-374-0486. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm not done.
Okay, no, go ahead.
Okay, so obviously you offer CDs, right?
We do.
Okay, what are some of the highest interest rates that you could give with your CDs that you offer? Because that's what I'm interested in.
Sure. And again, that in particular is customized, right? So and especially for an individual, you might have a different rate as opposed to an organization that may get some other type of credential.
I'm a private person.
Okay, which is exactly why, sir. And I'm just trying to just tell you very directly that we would need you to reach out to the bank and have a private discussion with respect to that request.
Well, I mean, you guys are asking to call in. I'm calling in with some questions, and I'm not really getting any answers.
I'm answering your question by telling you that that's a question that has to be directed to the bank.
You're directing me. Okay, thank you.
You are very welcome. Okay, it looks like we do have another caller holding. Caller, please go ahead. Thank you so much for holding.
Thank you for taking my time. And one thing I'd like to say, when you go to Chase, U.S. Bank, or any place else, you don't ask them, what can you do for me? You go in there and find out what can they do. You know, my thing is this. We want to build up Columbia Savings and Loan. And we should go there to make them stronger. Don't go there first putting in your money and then wanting them to help you buy a house and you haven't done your due diligence to earn them. Furthermore, I think we should open up accounts to make us stronger as a black bank. And yet, and if you got $10,000 or $20,000, you're going to get a higher rate on your money. So don't think you can come put $1,000 in and you're going to get a 4.99 interest rate, okay? Benefit. So don't think because it's a black bank, they're going to be doing you all, what do they tell me? Give me a hookup. This is not a hookup thing. It's a help us get stronger thing. Help us to be recognized. And then if you be there for your children right now, invest now. So when you take your son to the bank and he wants to buy a car and you open up that account for him and you tell him now in 6, 7, 8 months, you and your mother have an account there, your uncle got an account there, and it should be looking good for you. That's just my comment.
Ma'am, and I can't tell you enough. If I could underscore that comment and play it back, I would. Thank you so much for that comment, because that is the reality of what we deal with on a daily basis. Thank you so much for what you said. Is there anything more that you'd like to add?
I think she's left. That's Brenda.
Ma'am? Okay, nope. I think that was the comment that she had. So yeah, thank you so much for that. And, and I hope that people can understand and appreciate, and Dr. Fuller, I'll let you speak to this too, if you would like to, but I hope that people can understand and appreciate that, I can't get on the air and quote the highest interest rate because everyone will come in and have that same request. But this is a case by case basis based on the circumstances. And, understand and keep in mind the fact that we are a mission bank. So we take customers and we provide mortgages to people who wouldn't be able to go to other institutions and get those mortgages. So there's a greater risk associated with that. So we have to conduct ourselves accordingly from a business standpoint. And anyone who understands banking, I hope, would understand that. So go ahead, Dr. Fuller. You look like you can't wait to say something.
Yeah, I think that's the last caller. That was right on point. That's the whole objective of banking, especially the type of banking that we're doing. You have a black bank. The reason it was started, why it was started, and the purpose of that bank is to add value to people and make a difference in the lives of people that have been marginalized by the banking community.
Right.
And that's key. So then what she was saying, the thing that makes the bank more productive is more core investors, depositors,
right?
People that come in, put their money there, not necessarily looking for what they can get from, as some type of immediate gratification from the bank, but how the bank is able, how the bank and the community is able to grow together. So in the long run, the bank can be more profitable to more people and help more people that are marginalized and that will continue to be marginalized in the financial community.
Right. Exactly. So, so we're going to continue the discussion moving forward. We talked last week, Dr. Fuller, about the pros of Black banking, economic empowerment, which has been a theme of this show so far. And so we want to just touch base on that a little bit again. You've hit a lot of the high points. So if there's anything else you wanted to say about that, otherwise I'm going to move on to the second point that we did talk about a little bit last week too, and that was the cultural understanding.
Like you talk about economic empowerment, investing in the community.
Right.
Like at the time when the bank was started, the community wasn't growing. There was a need for more housing, and people wanted to own their homes. and they couldn't get access to capital from other banks. So then Columbia was started to make that happen. So that's one of the main, that's one of the benefits of economic empowerment in the Black community with Black banks. Helping close the racial wealth gap, which is huge. Black banks can help do that, because when people coalesce their money together, focus on organizing their money, focus on keeping the community in the community for long periods of time, the community grows.
Right.
And so, don't have your money to stay in the community one day and it's gone, but no, have it to stay there. And Black banks help do that.
Right.
And so that's the main thing. If you have a lot of money, like Black folks have a lot of money, but we spend like we're broke and we live like we're broke because our money is not in the community a long time.
Right.
It's there maybe a day or so. Other communities there a lot longer.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was something else that we touched on even before the break that I said when we came back I wanted to mention, but we had a number of calls holding, so I went ahead and I gave priority to the callers. But one of the things that you said earlier is it's a lie to say that we don't have money as Black people, and I think that there are a lot of people that would say no, that's right, I don't have money, but then they're not looking at what you spend frivolously on. There's a lot of that. I think if we are honest with ourselves and self-assess or create a budget and see where does your money really go on a month-to-month basis, you may have more money than you think you have if you really look at a budget and say what goes to mandatory living expenses, but what do you do that maybe you're overspending on eating out, maybe you're overspending on clothing or hairstyles or fingernails and all of these things that cost a whole lot. We're laughing, but this adds up. You can spend $100 on fingernails every week if you are so inclined, or probably more.
Right. Yeah,
right. I mean, I'm a woman. I like the fingernail thing too, but hey, look, if it's not in the budget for this month, then it just doesn't happen this month. I can polish my own nails, for free. So whatever the case may be, I'm just saying that as Black people, we have more money than we think sometimes if we look honestly at how we're budgeting and how we're spending. So go ahead and take that extra $200 or $300 that you might spend frivolously every month and stick it in a savings account and watch it grow over time. That's really what we're talking about.
Sure
right?
is. I just a little side note here. I used to do at my church. I used to do classes on drug use and abuse and how drugs affect people's lives and what drugs and alcohol and all of that type of stuff do to people's lives. And one of the things in some of the classes that we had, we talked about spending, and we talked about, people talking about Black folks don't have money and all that stuff. And I said, that's not me. I'm not going to buy that. That's a lie. And one of the things, we just took cigarettes. And a lot of the folks that was in our class and in my class, they smoked. And I asked them, I said, well, how many packs do you smoke a day? Some people that really smoke 2 or 3 packs a day or more. And if a pack of cigarettes is what are they now? $10 or something like that?
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
Be a little more, like $11 or $12. Yeah.
Are you smoking like that? And some of them smoking more than that. That's a day.
So multiply that by 3.
Yeah.
$30 a day.
Times 7.
7 days a week.
Times 30.
Times 30. Yeah.
And then you come out how much you get out of how much you spend in a month. That's a car note.
Yeah, sure is.
That's almost a house note.
Right.
So, but they doing that every day.
Right.
Where's the money coming from? And the people on the store that's selling that stuff, they're not going out of business.
Right.
If you look at our community, you'll see all of these corner stores, liquor stores, and little cheap grocery stores that they have on the store where they're selling all this stuff that don't benefit anybody health-wise.
Right.
Those folks are not going out of business.
Right.
They're staying there.
Yeah.
You go into those stores and you buying the meats and things like that. There's no vegetables in those stores.
Right.
That's if they're there and they've been there for so long, you got to turn vegetables over. But that could be a problem on our part too. We got to learn how to eat right. We got to learn how to live right. We got to learn how to just not only invest our money, but invest in our health in a better way.
Right.
You know, so it really comes down to what we want to do for our community. And one of the things I'm telling you as a pastor in this community and as a board member on one of the only black banks in the city, only black bank north of Chicago in the state of Wisconsin. I don't even know if they have any in Minnesota or not. You know, that we as a people can do better when it comes to supporting ourselves financially. And it doesn't make any difference how much money you have or how little you have, you can do that.
Right.
So that's my challenge, you know, as a person in this community, as a leader in this community, is that we got to make the choice to what we want to do with this institution.
Right.
It's in our community, in the heart of the black community.
Right.
In the heart of it. So we as a people make the decision of what we want to do. Do we want to make it better? And we have the power to do that.
Right.
With just basic, like the last caller said, with just basic core depositors. You come in now, you open up your account. And you want to help the bank grow for the next generation. That's coming up.
Right.
The next generation.
Mm-hmm.
My grandkids, your grandkids, your kids, mm-hmm. Right on down the line. That's all other communities do. And that's what the Hellions was thinking about when they started it.
That's right.
And they got a good start on it because it's 100 years later, the bank is still here.
That's right.
And you know, with our conversation, you would think that the black community haven't grown, but the black community has grown and is flourishing, and we have money to spend, but we just have to focus it.
There you go. That's exactly right. I couldn't have said it any better than that, Doug Fuller.
You know,
I couldn't have said it any better than that. So again, one of the pros that we talked about last week was this cultural understanding. You want to just touch base on that a little bit as we move through the list?
You know, I think that's the very crux when it comes to black banking. That's one of the crux of why the black bank exists. These institutions, you need, you have been confronted with historical challenges where mainstream institutions might not understand the culture of the people that they're banking with, how they live, how they relate to money, you know, some of their habits and things like that. You get a black bank, you might understand that you have so to speak, you have a people, you know, when you look at our country, you know, even if you look at the slavery question, so to speak, they have black folk that slavery anyway, supposedly 1865, that was it. You know, and things like that a little later. But then you had Jim Crow. Then you had all that other stuff. You had all of this discrimination, so it wasn't really free. But then they wasn't free anyway, because if you have people that have been enslaved for all those hundreds of years, and then you let them go with no financial means. Come on, man. If you're going to go out there and say you're going to be a free people, you know, you need to have a financial advantage. You can't say that you're really free and you're broke. You know, and you have to try to lift yourself up from with your own bootstrap, you know. Right. And so I think that culturally, you need a bank to understand the people that they're banking with.
Right.
That's very important, because if you don't understand me, you're really not gonna, when I come in and want something, you know, you're really not gonna really give me the advantage that I really need in order to be, you know, to help me, to add value to me the way that you should add value to me as a banking institution.
Right.
That's important.
Right.
Other communities, we know that happens.
Right. Exactly. And that's a real important point. So let's move on the list and talk about job creation. Why is that important?
Well, you know,
that should go without saying, right? But
we just did that not too long. I mean, we've been creating jobs right at Columbia Savings and Loan.
Right.
I mean, you really have that firsthand with your experience.
That's definitely a firsthand thing. And it's one of those things that, you know, I like to mention that, you know, when Mr. Jones talks about why he ended up taking on the mantle as the leader of this organization, is to help save jobs and now even create jobs as we navigate the future of this bank. And so that I hope that that's one thing that goes without saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, providing jobs. We talked about community reinvestment. Black banks more likely to invest in local development projects,
Right.
affordable housing, and as we mentioned, financial literacy programs. That's one of those topics that I think another one of those things that goes without saying, but manages to get me in trouble every once in a while when I mention it. And I rub people the wrong way, don't mean to, but we need a dose of truth and reality sometime, and sometimes I'm the person that's here to give it. Financial education, part of it too. Was there anything else you wanted to say about the pros before we talk about some of the challenges of Black banking?
Did you know the community reinvestment thing is so important? Like I say, what really has hurt my heart lately has been the store that's closed on 35th and Noah.
Oh yeah. You know what, Doc Fuller? I don't even want to rush you on that because it looks like it's time that we do need to take a break and allow some commercials to play. So I don't want to rush you on that because I think that's important. Let's talk about that when we come back from the break.
Sounds great.
We will have more Money Talks with Attorney Coral with Dr. MOSE Fuller after the break. And we are back on the air with Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I'm Attorney Coral Pleas, and I have with me in the studio this morning Dr. MOSE Fuller, who is a director on the board of directors for Columbia Savings and Loan Association. Thank you again, Dr. Fuller, for being here.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So there is a caller that came in before the break. We were going to work to get through the program that we have ready for you today. But since this person has been patiently holding, please, caller, if you would go ahead with your question or comment before we get back to the remainder of the program. Go ahead, caller.
This is Rick calling you long distance from Germany, sis.
Wow,
Hey,
Rick
Rick
from Germany. You're at Deutschland.
I'm in Hell's Kitchen.
Hell's Kitchen.
All right.
I'm eating pork like it's going out of style, and it's killing me, you know.
Well, you got to let us, Rick.
You got to have some vegetables with that.
I want to be quick. You got to keep an eye on your money and be a responsible believer. And even if you don't believe, money is everything to you if you don't believe. But you got to keep one eye on your money, but you got to know that this world is coming to an end very soon. Not the end of humanity, not the end of the planet, but the end of 7 billion people as we live today. I'm done, folks.
Okay, Rick, thanks so much for your comment and have a good rest of your week. So Doc Fuller, before we went to the break, you were about to get into the food desert. I think that was the term you used earlier, and just make a comment about that, because that's important. And I didn't want you cut short on that. I wanted you to have an opportunity to just say what you wanted to say, because this show is about money. Go ahead.
When every time I ride past the Pick and Save on 35th and North, where all of those people around that store, they shopped, and that was a large store. You go there a lot, you really don't look at how large that store really was.
Right.
It's large, and it served a vast community. Some of our little suburbs around Milwaukee County, Wauwatosa, Glendale, West Dallas, West Milwaukee, and places like that, St. Francis and places like that, black folks that live in that area have more people than, live in some of those suburbs. Close to 30, 40, 50,000 people. Right. I mean, it served that store served a lot of people. And for that store to not be there is devastating to that community, because that store has been there for a lot of years. So it's a devastating blow to that community on the west side of Milwaukee. So when you have banks, Columbia Savings and Loan is right down the street from that bank. That's why you need strong financial institutions in communities that can go to other banks in the community and say, look, we're not going to let this happen.
Right.
Are you going to work with us to not make this, to not allow this to happen? And that's what we're saying. That's simply what we're saying to the black community. We have money. We might not have as much money as other communities in this in this nation, in this state, in this city, in this county, but we have money, and so we have to focus our money. We have to pool our money, and say, look, we're gonna be the one that's gonna make some things happen in this community. This is when that store left, it created a food desert, and it created hardship for a whole lot of people that lived around that store to have access to good fruits and vegetables.
Right. And I've been in that store many times. Yeah. And that was a very large store.
It was a very large store.
And the produce section with the fresh fruit and vegetables, like you mentioned, and everything that was in there. And the the location of that store, we mentioned this last week, but this is important, so I want to say it again, was in walking distance because it was in the heart of a community. So there are people that could walk to that store if that's their only means of transportation to buy their groceries and then be able to walk home. Where are those people going to go now if they don't have a car or some other means to go to get to grocery for shopping?
So you're exactly right. So and then all around, east, west, north, south of that store, they had people. Not just some people, but a whole lot of people.
A lot of people.
People that needed those groceries weekly, daily.
Right.
And then they had money to buy them.
Right.
They had money. They're getting their checks. I don't care how much those checks were. People getting those checks every month. Sometimes we don't know how they was getting their checks, but we know that people had money to buy those groceries. That store needs to be open.
Right.
And the community and can make a difference, but we're going to have to come together and organize and pool our resources. And that's why community, and I know you know this, listeners, that is why we need strong Black institutions in this community, not only going to serve the Black community, but it's going to serve everybody that desire to be served by that institution.
Right.
And that's just a fact. So that's why you need a Columbia Savings and Loan. That's why you need that bank to grow, so that things like happen on 35th and North do not continue to happen in our community. And I still say that community and the leadership in this city, in the city of Milwaukee, in the county of Milwaukee, in the state of Wisconsin, should be willing to do something about that and make sure that store opens up again. That store, that area is not blighted by the closing of that store. Man, it is devastating.
Yeah, it really is. I haven't even driven that way.
Oh,
I don't
man,
even want to see it.
huge.
But yeah, so that's a call to leadership. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Dr. Fuller. Well, it looks like that's all the time that we have this week, and we'll come back another time and continue talking through some of the challenges of a Black bank in the community, the survival and those types of things. Proud to say Columbia is doing well and going strong. Please keep supporting this institution. Thank you, Dr. Fuller, for being here.
Thank you
and
for
thank
inviting
you,
me.
listeners. And we'll be back next week with more information for you.